are you? Thank you for coming to our City Forum lecture series. Before we start today's lecture, I need to make an announcement. I've been asked to do so. I did not do that at the beginning of the semester. By the way, my name is Lydia. I'm the faculty coordinator for City Forum. And, I have Aisha in the back, student coordinator. And the announcement may sound a little bit mean. My name is mean. Notice that in the last few lecture series in the past, people came over here with food, and then in the middle of the talk, they stood up and they left. It's not a very good sign. So my main announcement that you're here, so please do stay through the lecture and to show your respect to our speaker, to show your respect to the resources our school and program have already put in. For example, for the food, for the GRA, coordinating with so many potential speakers and eventually identify and select a great speaker for each of the sessions, talks. So if you do that, really appreciate that. And also, please relay the messages to your fellow classmates or others. Okay, so that's it. With that, let me introduce our speaker for today, Dr. Marla Torrado. Marla is the program coordinator of the Austin Community Design and Development Center. She leads the Ali Flat initiative and its new extension, the Anti-Displacement program, which offers low-income homeowners an opportunity to stay in place by building an income-restricted alley flat, the accessory dwelling unit, on their property. Marla completed her Ph.D. in community and regional planning from our camp here. Her Ph.D. study focused on participatory planning and community organizing. She also worked in the development of the corridor housing preservation tool publicly available through the Envision Tomorrow website. So welcome, Marla. Welcome back home.
Thank you. Thank you, Ming, for the introduction. And thank you to the organizers for inviting me to come talk. Like Ming mentioned, I graduated here from 2016, so 2 years ago. Can't believe it's been 2 years already, from CRP. So it's nice to come back and talk a little bit about what I'm doing now at ACDDC, kind of share all the things that you can do and can happen after graduation. So I work at the Austin Community Design and Development Center, ACDDC. We are a local nonprofit housed on the east side of town. And we are a really small group of architects and planners working on affordable housing programs and different community-based initiatives throughout Austin. Our mission is to improve the quality of life for all through community-engaged design, which is basically having a lot of community input and also having other stakeholders, important stakeholders of the neighborhood participate in the planning process. And kind of our vision, we envision more inclusive and sustainable neighborhoods that are achieved through an empowered community, so an engaged community, a nurturing built environment, and then a supportive regulation and policies that can sustain all of those things. So how many of you are from community and regional planning here? Almost all of you. Other programs, architecture? Great. How many of you are from Austin? There you go. It's hard to find nowadays. How many of you just moved here because you're studying here? And maybe you are considering staying here? Yeah? Okay, cool. My situation as well. So probably you guys who are in community and regional planning and probably architecture as well have noticed or have heard that Austin is going through a lot of changes like many other growing cities, right? It's facing a lot of population growth, demographic changes that has also, there's a lot of talk about gentrification out there. And that is because on average, do you guys have any idea about how many people move to the city every day?
150.
Or that, yeah. I have 110, so you might be right. This might be already outdated. So about 150 people move here every day, which takes us to about 40,000 or more, because that's for my calculation, per year that move to the city. So that's a pretty significant number, and evidently that brings with it a lot of other issues, right? So one of the main things that come out of this, as you can imagine, we have transportation issues. We have, I don't know, so many other things. The one thing that we focus on specifically at ACDDC has to do with housing. So all this influx of people coming in every day and every year has started what you probably have heard around an housing crisis, right? And so it becomes way harder for people, especially low and moderate income folks, to be able to find a home. And when I say low and moderate income folks, I'm talking about 50% median family income or below, really, to 120% median family income. And in terms of numbers, we're talking about people who make $32,000 to close to $80,000 a year. It's really hard for those of us in that range to really find an affordable home. So, which takes us to displacement pressures. So this has taken a toll in communities who are predominantly low income, low and moderate income, because all this influx of people, you have new development, you have increasing houses that are just really, really expensive, which brings up the property taxes. And a lot of the low and moderate income folks who have been living here for a really long time, it's really hard for them to keep up with this increasing property values, and have been pressured to move out. There's a lot of pressure, and there's also, I would argue, and there's a lot of studies that have come out, people have just left. I don't know if you guys know about Dr. Eric Tang. He's also from UT, and he has done several studies looking at the communities that have already been pushed out. And a lot of those are located on the east side, where African Americans and Latino communities used to reside for a really long time. So, like I said, especially in East Austin, there's been more pressure because, as you're probably aware, the way that planning for the city was created back in the 1928 plan was very segregated and would put the minority communities on the east side, which turned that area to have very cheap land, which nowadays, in the last 20, 30 years, that land, because it's so close to downtown, has been just really attractive for developers and people who are moving in. And so that's what's being making, and all these changes and making people be pushed out of their neighborhoods, especially on the east side. So this map that you see here is an analysis that we did about a year ago or so of the Blackland neighborhood. The Blackland neighborhood, it's a small community, predominantly African American community, between Manor, Kamal, and it's pretty small. It's this area that you see here. Can't remember the other boundaries. But in this map, we just looked at what homes have changed ownership in the last 10 years to kind of analyze, like, okay, how are people moving? Is there new people coming in? And we found that 41% of the homes have changed ownership in the last 10 years, which is pretty significant, given that the neighborhood is not that big, and also given the fact that there is a community development corporation that works in this neighborhood. It's called the Blackland Community Development Corporation, and they have affordable housing programs, they have community land trusts, and they own 20% of the neighborhood land to keep it for affordable housing. So knowing that 41% has changed is a pretty significant kind of change for the whole neighborhood. So when we're talking about affordable housing, what are we really talking about, right? So HUD defines affordable housing that the homeowner does not spend more than 30% of their income paying for that home, including utilities, right? So anyone who pays more than 30% of their income would be considered to be house cost burden, okay? So there are two types of affordable housing that you can hear out when you talk to folks that are kind of in the affordable housing world. There's the market rate affordable housing, which is pretty much housing that is kind of deteriorated because of their physical conditions. They're rented cheaper, right? And then you have the other type, which is the income restricted affordable housing, which is very specific. It requires people who live in it to be income qualified, so have a particular income to be able to live there. And that's what we kind of call the affordable housing, affordable capital A, right? Is because we're talking about a specific population that has to meet an income qualification to be able to live there. So there's two ways to be able to build or have this income restricted affordable housing. One is subsidized, and it's pretty much having funds from the local, federal government to be able to build this housing and be able to provide it because of these subsidies. You're able to provide it cheaper. And then the other one is incentivized, which is pretty much providing some sort of incentives for developers who are going to be building housing, and the city says, okay, if we give you this or we cut some fees or something like that, would you build affordable housing, right? In your project, in the project that you're going to develop. So those are the main two ways to get some income restricted affordable housing. So when we say 30%, an affordable home or an affordable household is that does not pay more than 30% of their income in housing needs. I mean, that could mean very different things for different people, right? Someone who makes $1 million could be living in an affordable home because it's affordable for them, which is not the same for someone who's making $17,000 a year. So I always like to show this, and maybe a lot of you are familiar with this. The term affordable housing also tends to have a negative connotation. And I think this is something that people need to be re-educated about what we mean. When we're looking at Austin, this is for the Austin metro region, which includes Round Rock as well. This is the federal income limits table for our area. Our median family income for a family of 4 would be $81,000, which is pretty high. So pretty much anything that it's below 100% MFI is considered low income, okay? So per one-person household making $45,000 would be low income. All of those, I mean, everything that's up this part here, they define it as low income, very low income, and extremely low income, okay? So I think this is pretty telling, because once you're able to exchange the term for, no, this is actually what it means, someone who's making this amount actually qualifies for what's meant for affordable homes, I think it gives a different perspective to people about who we're talking about. And when we talk about Austin in particular, who needs affordable housing? Well, Housing Works, I don't know if you guys are familiar with this organization, but it's a great nonprofit here from Austin, working on policy and research all around affordable homes and has some really cool data. So this is what they came up with, because a lot of people, like I said, don't really understand what affordable housing means or for whom, and they already have a preconceived conception of who that would be for. So they kind of spelled it out for everyone. So you have a lot of seniors that would fall under that very below poverty level line, people who are on fixed incomes, people with disabilities, right? And then it tells you in Austin, we currently have this amount of households that would qualify in this category. You also have folks who are child care providers, nurses, bus drivers. That's another set of folks that qualify in this area, medical assistant, bookkeepers. So it's a really, really big range, and I think it's important to kind of give a face when we talk about affordable housing, because all these people are needed in our community to be able to function. So we need to keep that in mind all the time. So like I mentioned at the beginning, all this population change and influx of people that are coming to Austin all the time has been making it really hard for people to be able to find a home, especially those that are making between $32,000 and $78,000 a year. On top of that, we know that 48% of renters too, because renters are also an important part of the city, 48% of renters in our city are cost burden, which means that they are paying more than 30% of their income in housing. So because of this, and you guys are probably aware that this affordability and gentrification are very key terms playing around in local politics. And so because of this kind of wave of, there's a housing crisis, people are not being able to find homes, they have to move away to get a home in Manor, Hutto. The city just passed and approved, the city council, our first affordable housing blueprint, which is basically a document that specifies the goals and directions for how to attain affordable homes in Austin. And so what they came up with is that for the next 10 years, Austin needs to build 135,000 new housing units that are for low and moderate income families. And you can see here kind of the breakout of the recommendation that they made. So 60,000 of these new units would be for homeowners who are 80% median family income or below, okay? So it's pretty telling, and it's pretty great as a community member to see that our city council is really paying attention to this issue and really, really trying to do something about it. So this is kind of a context of the things that we at ACDDC find really important and kind of do work that try to support all these affordable housing and affordable housing initiatives in the community. So one of the primary programs that the Austin Community Design and Development Center has is called the Ali Flat Initiative. And the Ali Flat initiative actually came out as a collaboration between the Center for Sustainable Development here at UT, which probably some of you are familiar with, the Guadalupe Neighborhood Development Corporation, who is a nonprofit also from the east side. It's a development corporation, and they offer affordable housing services and also have a community land trust in their organization, and ACDDC. So the three of us kind of work together to manage the Ali Flat initiative, but our office pretty much works on the day-to-day management of and working with clients and all that. So basically, so what is an Ali Flat? So an Ali Flat is pretty much a single detached home that is built in the backyard of a single family lot. So an accessory dwelling unit, basically. So the way that we call it an Ali Flat, it doesn't necessarily need to have an alley to be able to build one of these. But the reason why we call it an Ali Flat and not an accessory dwelling unit is because the Ali Flats that we help build, they are green and they are affordable. So green because they rate at least 3 stars in the Austin Energy Green Building rating system, and affordable because they participate in the city's affordable housing program called Smart Housing. So what that means is that the homeowner who's wanting to work with us to build an accessory dwelling unit, they will participate in Smart Housing, which gives them some upfront cost savings in terms of permit fee waivers and other sort of waivers for the construction part. And in exchange, they have to rent the Ali Flat to an income qualifying homeowner that it's 80% median family income or below. So that's one component and one incentive that the owner gets, right, from that building permits. And then the other incentive is that our organization, because we are a local nonprofit, we're able to access grant money to cover some of our operating costs, and we're able to provide reduced architectural and planning fees for the project. They kind of get those two things in exchange for providing this Ali Flat to an income qualifying homeowner. Let's see. So we work with different type of people. We work with community development corporations, like I was mentioning before. We have worked with the Blackland Community Development Corporation to build some Ali Flats in their lots. We've worked with the Guadalupe Neighborhood Development Corporation, and we work with the Clarksville Community Development Corporation. And after this slides, I'm also going to show some of the pictures of the Ali Flats that we built with them. So in addition to working with these other nonprofits, we also work with private homeowners who want to build an accessory dwelling, an Ali Flat in their homes. And for the most part, what we've seen is that a lot of the folks that we work with, the homeowners, they have been thinking about, you know, my parents need to come and live with us. They would qualify. We have another client who built one who has been very involved with refugee departments and refugee nonprofits around town. And she's really interested. She just built one. It's our latest one that we built. And she's going to be renting it out to refugee families that might need it. We also have one client who is thinking, okay, I really thinking about my future and I want to be able to age in place. And, you know, I might not need, because my kids are going to be gone, I might not need this big house anymore. So in the future, we can move into the Ali Flat and then maybe rent out the front house or something. But for now, they're fine renting it to someone who's low income until they make that change, right? So there's a lot of different reasons why people might do it. And so we've been able to build 7 Ali Flats so far, and we have currently 10 that are under development right now. So this is one of our first Ali Flats that we did. We built this Lydia Ali Flat with the Guadalupe Neighborhood Development Corporation, so it's a local nonprofit. It is a little bit over 500 square feet. It is fully accessible, 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom, And this specific alley flat, it's for a family or a single person who is 30% median family income. And it will be affordable for 40 years because it's part of the Community Development Corporation Affordable Housing Program. And so that's kind of the length of time that they have their houses affordable. So, which is pretty awesome. And you can see here on the left, that's the primary house. So this was in the back, and at the beginning it was meant to be for the grandmother of the people who lived in the front house. Now she passed away, but it's still being used for people who, mostly seniors, because it's fully accessible, that are low income. So this is the Clarksville alley flat. This is in the Clarksville neighborhood, which is kind of on the western part of town. So we finished this one in 2 years ago. And it was developed with the nonprofit. It is a little bit bigger, 2-bedroom, 2 bathrooms, and their threshold for this one is a 50% median family income. And again, the affordability period is for 40 years. And right now, here lives a single mom with her kid in a neighborhood that otherwise they would not have been able to really live there. It's really close to parks. It's really close to the school where the girl goes to. And so one of the tricky things and the things that is exciting for us who have architects as well in our nonprofit is designing this alley flats can be very challenging. As you can see there in the picture on your left, this beautiful tree in the front really made it hard to design. So this alley flat turned out to be really long and kind of skinny. But it's still very functional, 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom, and works great for the family who's there. So the Duvall Ali Flat, we did with a private homeowner, just a regular homeowner. And it's about 850 square feet, 2-bedroom, 2 bathrooms. And it's home to a family who is 80% median family income. And it's only, like I said, because it participates in this affordable housing program of the city, a smart housing, it's affordable for 5 years. And it's a family-friendly design. Again, these are families that now are able to live in central part of Austin that otherwise would have not been able to live there and access all the different amenities that they might need. So one of the things we started doing about a year ago was, well, we know that these alley flats are really neat and really good for at the individual level, like at the household level. But what about if we start looking at these in terms of a network of housing, and mostly thinking about this missing middle that, like the term implies, it's all the housing that it's between multifamily and single family, all the other stuff that would be kind of infill development. What would that produce if we start thinking about this network of housing? So a very small project research that was done by our organization, actually by a CRP grad student, was thinking about, again, this alley flats as a network, not so much as individual housing. And so some of the things that the research came up with was, well, green infill can do a lot of good things for the neighborhood as a whole. You can reduce rent and utility bills while generating income for the household because of the rental unit. You can also increase walkability, bikeability, and the commute distance, because if you're doing this infill development, hopefully you're going to be closer to different amenities and you might not have to use your car, say if you were living in Hutto or Manor. You can increase recreation and increase outdoor comfort, so hopefully with all this new development, you're required by the city to have a sidewalk on your property. So the more that we do this, the more connected that we could be. This is kind of all the potential of all this infill development. And in terms of air quality, this study that we did also looked into, what if for every alley flat that we built, you were also required to add X amount of trees, right? It was kind of part of the analysis that was done. And then they measured kind of, okay, well then that might help with the air quality and all those other things. So we did a little bit of the of an analysis in the Blackland neighborhood, which was one of the first maps that I showed, a community that's on the east side. So what would happen if we would build more alley flats here? So we did an analysis of the different lots, of the zoning of the area, and we found that 49 lots in that neighborhood could potentially build an alley flat, right? So based on that, this is kind of the results that would bring if we were to increase the connectivity, if we were to plant more trees with that, kind of some of the community benefits that thinking in terms of more of a network of infill development would bring to the community. So some of the other things that we do at the Austin Community Design and Development Center is we look a lot at regulatory challenges. As you can imagine, building requirements, building code, zoning, and all that is very complicated. And so we are very active in talking about maybe making the code better so that we can help increase the density in neighborhoods while still keeping the character of the neighborhoods. So in 2015, there was a new regulatory change for the accessory dwelling units that reduced the lot size that you could build ADUs in. So we were very much part of that conversation. And now with Code Next, I don't know if you guys have heard about Code Next. It's something that can keep you up for days at a time. We're very much involved in the process of Code Next, making sure that we are looking out for affordability, and also making sure that we're going to be able to build all the different housing that it's needed with that little diagram that I show you of all the different types of families that need housing. We need to be able to provide those as well. So we're very much part of that conversation, which has been interesting to say the least. So some of the things that we're looking into and that we're working on currently is kind of creating an expansion or an addition to the Alley Flat initiative as it stands today. So the original idea of the Alley Flat initiative was to work with low-income homeowners who are in danger of being displaced because they cannot keep up with the increasing property taxes and all that. And by having this extra unit that they could rent out, that might be able to help them stabilize, right? So throughout the years, and the times that we've been able to work with community development corporations and also homeowners, we realized that it's really challenging to work with low-income homeowners. And by low-income homeowners, I mean 80% median family income or below, because there's a lot of financing challenges for these households, from credit scores to not having enough equity, et cetera. And so again, the original idea of the program was to help those homeowners be able to stay in place through this initiative. So we started thinking about, okay, so what can we do? So that's, last year we started working on the Alley Flat Initiative Anti-Displacement Program, which is pretty much the Alley Flat Initiative, but specifically for low-income homeowners that are in danger of being displaced. And what we're doing is we're partnering with the city, with the Neighborhood Housing and Community Development Office specifically, and a local lender, and creating kind of a program that would help not only finance these households, but also help provide some subsidies that could help them complete this project. So what we are talking about right now is having the city provide about 2/3 in subsidies to the homeowner through a forgivable loan for a specific amount of time, right? Because we don't want this to be like for 5 years as the program stands right now. It needs to be way longer than that. A forgivable loan that can help the homeowner build this, but still they will be able to generate some money that can help them stabilize and stay in place through that rental. So this is kind of a scenario of how it would be today, right? You have an 850 square foot house. It would be around 150,000 to build, and that number could be actually low, on the lower end. Right now, through the Ali Flat initiative, if the homeowner is financing the whole project, you would have a mortgage payment of $1,100, right? If we are telling the homeowner, because they're participating in the affordable housing program of the city, that the rent, the max rent that they can get for this house would be $1,300, then they're only making $138 extra, which is not that much, right? So we went through different iterations. So, okay, so what if the city is helping out with 1/3 of this whole process of this construction, and so what would that do? So basically, it allows you to go into a deeper level of affordability for the rental, and still you're getting some money out of it, right? So what happens if you actually have a voucher holder who is renting the Ali Flat, where that even gives you more income from that rental, because voucher holders pay market rate. And this is something that not a lot of people know. Basically, and we have 2 voucher programs in Austin. We have one from the city, HACA is their office, and we have another one from Travis County. So basically, the person who has a voucher, they're able to take that voucher and be able to live wherever they want, which is the idea of the voucher through fair housing, right? And so basically, they go to a home, they rent it out, and they will pay up to 30% of their income to that rental, and then whatever's left, the city or the county will put the rest to be able to pay for the whole thing, which is a great program. Unfortunately, voucher holders are very much discriminated against, and a lot of people just don't allow them. And I believe you have a window of 6 months to be able to use your voucher, and if you don't use it, you lose it. And this is years of wait list of people to get a voucher, and when they finally get it, a lot of people lose it, which is pretty bad. So again, with this program, if we actually have someone who's a voucher holder, we're going into a deeper affordability even more. Voucher holders are usually at 50% median family income, and you're getting even more income out of that rental. So again, we're talking about, for this particular program, it's a low-income homeowner he's gonna be helped and subsidized through this program to build this Ali Flat, and will be renting out to someone who also might need it. So this is kind of what we've come up with so far, how the program would look like. It would be kind of a one-stop shop from this is how the program works to you're done, everything's cool. We're including here, as part of this program, some education. So how to manage your loan, financing classes, and also some property management classes. People might not know how to be a landlord, right? So we have contacted different organizations, the Austin Housing Tenant organization, who will provide some of these classes, and also some other nonprofits that work on financing will be able to provide that kind of financing management classes. So this is still in works. We are, like I said, in communications. We're teaming up with the city and some local institutions, financing institutions, to make this work. And hopefully at some point this year we might start a pilot. So some of the other work that we do, like I mentioned, we do a lot of community initiatives and working with other nonprofits. This is one of our latest work in Montopolis. We're working with the Guadalupe Neighborhood Development Corporation. So the Guadalupe Neighborhood Development Corporation is housed on the east side, close to where the Quickie Picky is. Do you guys know? Have an idea where that is? Yeah? Okay, cool. So that area, they've been there since early 1980s, and they have developed a lot of housing, affordable housing, to help people stay in place. They have a community land trust, which basically the organization owns the land, and then they rent out the homes for really, really cheap. We're talking about 30% median family income or below in many of these homes. So they've been very successful. They have a lot of properties around the east side that they manage, both for rental and ownership, home ownership. And they're doing really great. They're doing really great in trying to keep some of the original generations that have been there for a long, long time. So Montopolis, it's another community that it's southeast, and it's going through, it's been called like the next east side, because there's a lot happening on that area. It's kind of the East Riverside corridor kind of goes through it, and it's going to bring a lot of change. And actually, a lot of change is already happening. You can go down there and you can see a lot of really new, big houses that are starting to be developed, and next to really old homes that are really falling apart. So the community there, the Montopolis Neighborhood Association, has been really vocal about this. There's a lot of organizations there that are also very powerful. Poder, I don't know if you guys know about Poder, kind of environmental focused organization, environmental justice. They are over there. And so there's a lot of community engagement. It's not an easy place to go to and try to do something new. So they have been really vocal about all the changes that are happening in their community, and they're really scared that they might become the next East Side and have all of their families who've lived there for a long time have to leave and go somewhere else. So Guadalupe Neighborhood Development Corporation has approached them, and they're interested in expanding the services of affordable houses that they have here on the east side to kind of take it over to the Montopolis neighborhood. And so we have been contracted by Guadalupe Neighborhood Development Corporation to do a strategic analysis of a feasibility analysis pretty much, of how that would look like to expand their services over to Montopolis. And during December of last year, we actually kind of threw out an email to CRP to see if there were people who were interested in doing a windshield analysis, and I see a few of you who are here that were super helpful and came out. And so pretty much we are going out there looking at the housing condition as it is now and doing a lot of market analyses and doing community meetings like you see here, and kind of bringing everyone together to make sure that the services that Guadalupe Neighborhood Development Corporation provides is something that they are interested in and that they're wanting. Because the least that you want to do is come into another neighborhood and say, I'm just going to do this, right? It's part of an engaged process, collaborative process to do all this. So we're working on that right now, and it's super exciting. It's very interesting. The other thing that we are working on right now is the Austin Strategic Housing Blueprint Implementation Plan. Like I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, the city last year approved the Austin Housing Blueprint report, which basically talks about the crisis that we have in terms of housing and affordable housing, and talked about all the goals and all the things, strategies that could be done. So this work is actually, okay, so how do you go about doing all those things? So we are partnering with another planning organization from town in bringing this together and saying like, okay, so here is the issue. This is the steps that you should take or you should look into. And this is your 2-year kind of plan, and then you have a 10-year plan to make sure that we kind of go out and do this now, since the crisis is already undergoing. So this is pretty much all I have. I hope it was useful, entertaining. Make sure you reach out if you have any questions. We have a lot, like I said, like a lot of activities and events going on, from community meetings to other things that we're kind of thinking about doing, other initiatives with different neighborhoods. With Blackland, we're thinking about starting kind of a reading group there with the residents, which is really fun. There's other things that we're thinking about, doing a better connection between affordable housing and health outcomes. It's something else that we're very, very interested in. So if you're interested in any of those things, make sure you reach out. We're local and we are doing good work. So thank you.